Every game, no matter how lovable and memorable, has its frustrating parts, and Call of Duty is no exception. With each annual release of the next iteration, players tend to experience something new each time, but one thing players never seem to be completely rid of is harsh spikes in difficulty, seemingly with little to no warning, leaving you on your hands and knees simply begging for the next checkpoint to scrape you through the rest of the level. As a former Call of Duty fanboy myself, I knew this all too well, ever since I held my first 360 controller in my hand. Keep in mind that these choices are of my own opinion and should not reflect every player's experience in these levels, but I'm certain my choices, and more so where I place them, should strike a chord with some people. So with that being said, I present to you my top 10 hardest levels in Call of Duty games.
Everybody put your hands in the air.
Starting the list off at number 10, we have a mission from one of the more recent Call of Duties, Black Ops Cold War. The mission in question being Red Light, Green Light. Cold War wasn't exactly what I'd consider the hardest campaign in the series, but there is one mission in particular that gave me a considerable amount of annoyance. The level itself starts out pretty tame, as you and Wood stealthily infiltrate a top-secret Spetsnaz training facility hidden in Ukraine, but problems soon arise upon discovering the truth behind an operation dated back to the 50s codenamed Green Light, where the US stuffed nukes in every country in Europe in a vain effort to deter a Russian invasion. Thanks, Eisenhower. As soon as you and Woods begin to hightail it out of there, the game then throws almost everything it has at you with waves of seemingly endless enemies combined with a handful of heavy, bullet-resistant enemies that just soak up damage like a sponge. On top of that, you'll have to deal with about a dozen APCs that just home in on you as you desperately try to peel out of there on one of your own. Certainly a steep climb in difficulty in a rather tame Call of Duty game.
Nope.
Moving into the number 9 spot, we have the Embassy mission from the Call of Duty that came before the former, which tasks you and Captain Price's cadre of allies with escorting a highly wanted international terrorist by the alias of The Wolf to a secure location after the US Embassy in Libya, Urzikstan, falls under siege to Al-Qaeda, Al-Qatala. In comparison to the other modern warfare missions, the Embassy is, in my opinion, the longest mission in the game, or at least it certainly feels like it is, with everything you do in this mission. From fighting through extremely tight corridors, to weaving in and out of bulletproof glass like a hall of mirrors, to escorting the ambassador's secretary from danger, to fighting to the safe house, to defending the safe house, and so on. It always seemed like as soon as you thought you were finally done with the mission, boom, something else happens. As soon as the final cutscene played out, I thought, is this it? Is it finally over?
Denied.
On to number 8, we have Captured from the first Call of Duty that incorporated futuristic... Yes, I know Black Ops 2 was the first actual futuristic Call of Duty. Whatever. The first futuristic movement Call of Duty, Advanced Warfare. Except you're not going to use any of it in this level, as your exosuit was removed and Kevin Spacey played whack-a-mole on your left arm. As soon as your allies free you and find to work your escape route, you quickly realize how different the combat feels while in a severely vulnerable position. Because your arm is broken, you're forced to drop your current weapon the second it runs dry on ammo in desperate search for a new one, as your allies do their best to watch your back, as it would prove rather difficult to reload when just one hand and arm. Also, keep this scene in mind later on. I'm not gonna say for what, just keep this a little bit in mind. Let's just skip to the next part.
Nope.
Taking the number 7 spot is the first mission in Infinite Warfare that, in my opinion, started to pique my interest in the game as a whole, as I was far too distracted by the fact that a supposed captain of a ship constantly deploys as a standard Marine, getting himself nearly killed over and over and over again. Seriously, how has no one dismissed him for sheer incompetence already? Anyway, about halfway through the campaign, the team is sent to a runaway colonized asteroid that's been knocked extremely close to the sun, named Vesta 3. When the group lands in search for any survivors, the game almost immediately takes on a far more horror-esque atmosphere, as you have to avoid being caught in the sun's scorching heat while outside and evade the station's haywire worker bots while inside, which is a lot harder than it sounds. It certainly doesn't help that kinetic weapons deal less damage to robotic enemies, and considering robotic enemies are the only things you're going to be shooting at, you'll be at a severe disadvantage if you didn't anticipate such a surprise like this coming. On repeat playthroughs, you'll most definitely know better to bring a Volk or a Type 2, but good lord, you'll be riding that heart-pumping adrenaline from start to finish. Now, like previous entries on this list, Call of Duty Ghosts pose little to no threat on veteran difficulty from what I've experienced. The 10th mission, Sin City, however, is one mission in particular that proved that Ghosts can still crank up the heat when it wants to. Just before reaching the massive open area leading to numerous slot machines that you can destroy to earn an achievement, you have to eliminate a tidal wave of Federation forces pouring in from several different places, except behind you, thank God. These enemies are extremely accurate due to a handful of them being snipers on elevated positions, as well as the majority of them blasting you with what is, in my opinion, the most obnoxious gun ever designed. The Bulldog. I mean, just look at it. The ammo is, I think, the muzzle? And you basically shoot the muzzle itself? I don't know. I say obnoxious because when you use this thing, I swear, you might as well have shot the enemy with a fucking super soaker. Oh, but when the enemy uses it, even if your big toe is sticking out from behind cover, I promise you, they will snipe you from as far away as humanly possible, but with small but very irritatingly noticeable damage that will just Why did Ajax have to give up our safe house location? Marching forward into the number 5 spot is the 3rd mission in Black Ops 1. Yes, I know it's not technically the 3rd. Shut up. Fucking nerd. You're basically given the task of assassinating the big baddie of the game, General Nikita Dragovich. On the way there, your task was shutting down the Spetsnaz's rocket testing facility to sabotage the enemy's capabilities. Nothing is too hair-pulling, per se, until after you blow the rocket sky high and are just left with hunting down Dragovich. Don't let the timer at the top fool you. You have more than enough time, I assure you. As you, Woods, and Weaver pursue his last known location, it becomes clear that the home stretch of this mission gives it its spot on this list it deserves. Akin to no fighting in the war room from Call of Duty 4, tight and narrow corridors, numerous choke points, piss poor lighting, extremely patient enemies with pinpoint accuracy, and lots of shit for said enemies to hide behind to catch you off guard makes this a true test of endurance. Just remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Get over here!
Now, I'm putting 2 missions here for the number 4 spot on this list because they are both very similar in nature and take place in relatively the same area. These are easily the more frustrating levels in Veteran in Modern Warfare 2, especially on your first go-around. Taking place shortly after capturing and interrogating Alejandro Rojas' right-hand man for the whereabouts of the former, you, along with 2 unimportant red shirts, drop down into the slums of Brazil to cut off Rojas' escape. Unfortunately for you, the Brazilian militia would like a word. Cranking the absurdity dial up to 11, you must frustratingly brave droves of enemies that easily blend in with random civilians, making you second guess and hesitate every time you go to pull the trigger. But these guys love to pop out of random doors, windows, roofs, alleyways, you name it. And you want to know what the worst part is? Sometimes they won't surprise you. Sometimes the game doesn't make them pop out at you where you think they would, immediately putting you on edge for when the AI director tries to pull a fast one on you. The latter mission, the Hornet's Nest, is a smidge more manageable in comparison, the simple factor being you now have AI squad mates backing you up, whereas the previous mission forced you to run and gun solo. That doesn't take away from the fact that you'll never let your guard down until you're riding that pave low as far away from Brazil as humanly possible.
Monster kill.
Sliding into the number 3 spot is by far the most fast-paced and skill-based mission in Call of Duty 4. Well, what did you expect? It's how Captain Lieutenant Price came to be. Shortly after the botched assassination attempt on Imran Zakhaev, you and McMillan immediately book it the fuck out of there with what feels like the entire Russian army on your 6. Little is recommended for this part other than to keep moving, as staying in one spot for more than necessary will only prove to your detriment. About halfway through the level, McMillan will get his leg crushed by a falling Heinz debris, so now you're forced to carry him throughout the rest of the level while occasionally dropping to cut a hole in the enemy's continuous onslaught. But eventually, you both make it to the infamous playground with the massive Ferris wheel you'll have to hold until evac arrives. After haphazardly setting up what little defenses you could, be prepared to survive the brunt of Zakhaev's armed forces for a solid 15 minutes as the chopper slowly makes its way to your location, and you'll only get 1 checkpoint to use about halfway through that. To top it all off, once evac finally arrives, you have exactly 30 seconds to grab McMillan's lazy ass and carry him to the chopper, all the while being constantly shot at the entire time. Price really did earn those mutton chops after all. Transitioning to the number 2 spot on this list is the 18th and final mission of Modern Warfare 3, and oh boy, what a final mission it is. Playing as Captain Price not since the previous entry, you tag team with the main protagonist you've been playing as for the majority of the campaign, Yuri, as you both attempt to settle the score with Makarov atop the Hotel Oasis in Syria. To get there, you and Yuri both must fight your way through dozens of private security forces as well as local law enforcement who just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Or right time, depending on your perspective. Fortunately for you, you've both been given Juggernaut armor to help even the odds. But don't get too comfortable with it equipped, because after commandeering the elevators to the top of the hotel, an enemy helo crashes into your lift shortly after you both successfully shoot it down, promptly destroying your armor and leaving you both vulnerable to bullets again. A rather apt description, because once the second elevator door is open, you have exactly 3 minutes and 30 seconds to reach Makarov before he escapes. And believe me when I say those next 3.5 minutes are going to be the longest 3.5 minutes of your life, as there are countless PMC forces around every nook and cranny that always manage to push you when you're least expecting it, causing you to fail again, and again. It sure made that end sequence more rewarding, I'll say. Don't lie. You knew this was coming. For the number 1 spot is the second to last mission in the Call of Duty that I first played back in 2008. It's absolutely no surprise that Call of Duty World at War is easily the hardest campaign to trudge through, and this game, all in all, was pure hell from start to finish. I honestly couldn't choose which mission to put on this list, as there's no shortage of suspects, but as I went to record footage for this list, I remembered why exactly I couldn't pick a winner, and that's because I forgot Heart of the Reich existed for a second, either because I was super wrapped up in other hair-pulling missions, or maybe it was because I actively tried to block this level from my memory. I'll start out with this. You have 3 checkpoints to last you the entire level. You, with me so far? Good, because although Heart of the Reich is the shortest mission in the game, it more than makes up for it in terms of just straight bullshit. I'm not joking when I say that 9-year-old me had more grenades thrown at me than that were ever produced in the entire German army. So how does one overcome this nigh insurmountable testicular tribulation? First, you'll have to eliminate enemies in and around a desolate and destroyed building. Seems easy enough, but where boys became men is when you'll have to then charge headfirst into the hellscape to destroy 3-pack 88 cannons so allied tanks can provide some kind of support. Now, you can go about this 2 different ways, either by shooting and destroying the cannon with a Panzerschreck, or manually approaching it and detonating explosives near it, which is far harder considering how easy it is to die by randomly spawning enemies, as well as the aforementioned ridiculous amounts of grenades they'll throw their way, if you even so much as think about taking cover. So, what do? Well, in short, in order to make things easy, you first have to make things harder for yourself. And I do not put that lightly. If you manage to manually detonate the first 2-pack 88s, you should be able to use the Panzerschreck nearby to blow up the last one from a safe distance. But now comes the worst part, as you'll now have to scrape through the rest of the level with just 1 final checkpoint remaining. No more. Buck up after this part, no matter how far, and you'll end up right back here. If somehow you manage to survive all the way to the staircase to regroup with Reznov and the others, if you stood in the wrong place, the crashing stone pillar will fall and crush you, instantly killing you and sending you back to the last checkpoint. Yeah. If you manage to beat World at War's campaign on Veteran, you have my utmost respect. No cap.
Gathered here, representatives of the major warring powers, to conclude a solemn agreement whereby peace may be restored. It is my earnest hope, and indeed the hope of all mankind, that from this solemn occasion a better world shall emerge out of the blood and carnage of the past. A world founded upon faith and understanding.